All right, let's dive into lesson 1 of our HTML Coding the Web book. And in lesson 1 here, I'm going to show you 2 different code editors that you can use online. We will pretty much use Replit most of the time, but in the event that something isn't working and we have to use something else, there's also an editor called Glitch. I'm going to pop into Glitch real quickly just so you can see what it looks like. You will go in here and join it. Now you can't see mine because it logged me straight in. But you would join and log in with your Google account. Let me see if I can log out so I can log back in. So you're going to sign in, and the first time you're going to just click join, and then you can connect it to your Google account. Okay. Now I'm going to sign in because I don't need to join, and I'll connect it to my Google account. And you may have to type in your password. And that's going to put you in here to Glitch. And you can see I have a bunch of different ones in here. It names them goofy little things, like this one's called Jolly Nutmeg. And it shows you a preview of it down here. And then you can click on Edit Project if you want to actually go in and manipulate the code. You can see there's a bunch of code in here. Okay, so that one's Glitch. So sign up for a Glitch account. And then also sign up for a Replit account. And that Replit is one that we'll use a lot. Same situation. You should be able to log in with your Google. And then once you get in there, it asks you, like, what do you want to code? And you would say, I want to make a new one. And if we were making a web page, we would go here to HTML. So sign up for both of those accounts so you'll be ready to roll. Now we're going to talk here in this chapter about the parts of a web page. We've already made our HTML man, so you should remember these parts. They should make sense to you. But let's talk about what HTML is. It stands for Hypertext Markup Language, which is just simply a fancy word for a coding language. And it's the language that's used most frequently on the internet. All HTML documents should start with what's called the document type declaration. That's that very top line, or part of our hat on our snowman. And then the HTML document itself starts with the HTML tag, right here, and it ends with the closing HTML tag. Remember, as we've talked about in class, these are called tags. They're not called codes. They're called tags. Each individual one is a tag. It has a pointy bracket on each side. The element that we are applying something to is the thing that's inside of the tag. So, for instance, this is the HTML element. This is the head element. And those are inside the brackets. Again, to turn off a tag or close a tag, we slash in front of the element. The words that display in the title bar here, or the title tab, those are the words that we see up in the little tab up here. So whatever words you put there, they do not display on the actual page. They display in the little tab. Then we have the head section, which is where the title lives. And in our example in class, we have Meta on the sunglasses, and then we have the big old mouth, that's the title, or the mustache if you went that route with your title. And then we have the big body section, which is what's going to hold the meat of the web page. Everything that we can see in the viewport is inside the body. Now, when you go into HTML editors, they usually start off with the basics of code, but they're going to be a little different. So this example here is Dreamweaver, which is an Adobe program, but if you were to create a new web page in Dreamweaver, it would automatically have these tags. It has one of the 2 metas that we use, but not both. But otherwise, it has everything else that's the same. If you go into Glitch, like I did a minute ago, this is what your base HTML structure is going to be. It's got a lot of extra stuff in it. So I always just tell students to delete it all, or at least delete what you 100% know we don't typically use. All right, the meta tags that we have inside, we use 2. The first one is going to establish the character set. It's the encoding for the characters. UTF-8 is Unicode format. It gives you most of the symbols that you would need. Then we have the meta viewport element, and that gives you instructions on the page's dimensions and scaling. So that way, like if you're on phone and you want to be able to pinch, it sets that initial scale to 1, and then you can pinch to make it bigger. We haven't got to the link tag, but this is another tag that we will put in the head section of a web page. It allows us to link to other information that's not on this page. This is not like a hyperlink. This is not like an underlined word that you click on and it takes you somewhere. This is a physical link that links something in your code to other code that can be used. And typically we link what's called a style sheet. And that's where we put all the styles, how we make the page fancy, how we change the fonts, how we give it color. That's all done in a linked style sheet. So we'll add that to your HTML, man. So for this exercise, you're going to do this on your own. You are going to go into REPL. You're going to delete all the content, and then you're going to make sure the file is called index.html. You're also going to delete these two guys, the script and the style, because we don't need them. And I'd really like for you to just delete all of this stuff and type it in from your HTML man notes. But essentially, here's what you're typing. I do want you to type in this red information, which is the words that are going to go in our title bar, because while we're working through the book, you're going to make a web page for Mickey Mouse with his resume on it. Okay? Now, something to note about web pages is they must be, the codes and the tags must be nested properly. So we already talked about how there are some tags that have opening and closing tags, but there are some tags that don't close. We consider those empty tags or empty elements because they don't have closing tags. So if they're empty tags, they're just sitting there. But if they have a close, they have to be closed in a proper order. And if you close them in the wrong order, you can mess things up. So like for instance, our HTML tag starts way up here, but notice we don't close it till the very end. That's because to nest it properly, we have to do it that way. So let me show you. I'm going to take a little screen snipping here so I can show you how nesting works. So let's say this is my page, and I'm just going to take this little pen. I'll take a red pen. If it's properly nested, there's not going to be any crossover if I connect the tags. Okay, so there's nothing to connect with Meta because they don't have closing tags. But if I connect this title to this title, it makes a pretty rainbow. And if I connect this head to this head, pretty rainbow. HTML to HTML, pretty rainbow. Body to body, pretty rainbow. See how it all makes pretty rainbows? If we're nesting properly, it makes pretty rainbows. If we would have put body and HTML backwards, then they would cross. That's not pretty rainbow. That's like attack, attack. That's a big mess, okay? So we have to remember to nest properly, to close things in the reverse order that we open them. All right, so on the example one, you're going to finish typing all of that in. You're going to hit run on your REPL. And then on the right-hand side, you're going to see a blank web page because we don't have any words on it. So you're going to click the little button to open it in a new tab, and then bam, you should have a whole blank page, but it's going to say Mickey's resume up in the top. Fun fact, you cannot format the head of a web page. So you can't make the words pretty. You can add a favorite icon to the front. We'll talk about that later on. And you can put some little special characters up in there. But generally speaking, you can't make like words bold or, italics or bigger. All the title bars up in the top, all those little tabs are always the same size font, the same font, all that good stuff. All right, lastly here, the last part of lesson 1 talks about how these things that are inside of the tags, if they have more than just one thing, so like body, title, head, those are just one word, right? But some of these things have other parts to them, like the meta tags. So we have a meta char set equals UTF-8. This back half of this, so after the first word and we space bar, this back half of this is called an attribute. Okay? The extra stuff is called an attribute. The attribute is the name of what we're doing equals the value for whatever that thing is. And that value goes in quotation marks. So if I'm setting the character set, the name is character set, char set, and the value is UTF-8 because that is the character set we're using. And you can have multiple attributes, and you just put space bar after this one, and then you would go on and do the next one. So know the term attributes. Finally, the bottom of this page talks about Wysiwyg Editors. So Dreamweaver, which is an Adobe program, and it's not free, is a Wysiwyg editor. You can actually just type on the page in there and highlight it, hit the bold button, and it just makes it bold without any code. That's what Wysiwyg does. You can play around in Jota Editor. It's one that's online, so I'm going to click on it just so you can see what it looks like. But Jota Editor has like a web page kind of built over here so you can see what it might look like. And then on the right-hand side, I can take it off of Wysiwyg mode and put it on split mode. So you can actually see over here, here's what this page has on it, but here's the code used to make what's on that page. And so now it has like all these different buttons over here to do stuff. You don't really have to pay attention to any of that, but what you can see then is what each of these codes does. For instance, if I look here at this LI in front of Possumus, if I come down here, Possumus, there's that. So an LI creates a bullet. And in a Wysiwyg editor, you can just hit a button up here to insert a bullet, and it puts in the code for you because it knows the code. So when we get to Web Design 2, if any of you are taking that class next semester, you'll get to use Wysiwyg Editors in that class because by then you already know how to code. So you don't need to type in all of the code because you understand the code. You're going to have to know how to get into code and fix code, but you won't have to type it all because you're already going to understand how to use it. So Web Design 1, we really focus on learning the code, learning how to code, learning how to fix the code, and learning how to do things that way. But this is what we call a Wysiwyg editor. What you see is what you get. So on the screen, we see that it's this, and that's just what it makes. And if I didn't have this code here, you wouldn't even know what code created that page. So, all right, that's a rundown of Lesson 1 here in Coding the Web. Make sure that you create your Mickey Mouse page. Not a very fancy page, but we'll be building on it in every additional lesson.